Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll get started in just a minute here. Gonna give everyone some time to hop on, but thank you so much for joining. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We'll get started here in just another minute or so, just to give everyone a chance to log on. Thank you for joining. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. We're ready to get started and kick off our Scrappage 101 webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you all here today to do a deep dive into the scrappage process for both the New York Truck Voucher Incentive Program and the New York School Bus Incentive Program. So we'll talk you through scrappage requirements and incentives, as well as best practices to prepare for your scrappage event. Here's our agenda for today. We'll start with introductions from our panelists, give you a background on what Scrappage is, discuss how Scrappage works within each program, and learn more about what to expect during a Scrappage event. We'll hold a question and answer session after the presentation, but if you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll be typing responses throughout and reviewing them during the Q&A session. Please note that this webinar recording will be shared with attendees after the webinar and posted to the program websites. Let's meet our panelists. My name is Sydney Hayes, and I'm a lead project manager with CalStart. CalStart is a consultant to NYSERDA on the New York Truck Voucher Incentive Program. Jenny, if you can go to the next slide for us, please. Awesome. I will go ahead and pass it over to Natalie.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm Natalie Toro. I'm a project manager here at NYSERDA, and I run the Truck Voucher Incentive Program. I'll pass it over to Jay.
Good morning, all. My name is Jay Craig, and I'm the project manager for the School Bus Incentive Program here at NYSERDA on the Clean Transportation team, and I'll hand it off over to Jonah.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonah Kazin. I'm a program manager at Empire Clean Cities. We are the Clean Cities Coalition representative in New York City, all 5 boroughs. We're a nonprofit that works on clean transportation projects, and we work with NYSERDA on both the TVIP and bus program as scrappage auditors. And I will hand it over to Barry.
I'm also unmuted. I'm Barry Carr. I'm the director and board chair at Clean Communities of Central New York. We are one of 6 coalitions within New York State and one of about 80 that are funded and part of the U.S. Department of Energy Clean Cities and Communities program. And we are also a scrappage auditor in upstate New York. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Back to you, Natalie.
We also have two representatives from our TVIP Voucher Help Center on today, Paul and Devin. So I'll let them give a quick intro as well.
Yeah, great to meet everyone. My name is Paul Mallard. I work at the Center for Sustainable Energy, and we act as the Voucher Help Center to answer all your questions.
Hi, everybody. My name is Devin Rohr. I work directly under Paul. And yeah, I'm the main point of contact at the Voucher Help Center.
Thank you both. All right, next slide, please. Let's begin our presentation with a background on what scrappage is. Scrappage is the process of verifiably rendering inoperable an internal combustion engine or ICE-powered vehicle or equipment by cutting a 3-inch by 3-inch hole in the engine block and disabling the chassis by cutting the vehicle's frames completely in half. Scrappage is completed to ensure that the ICE vehicle or equipment is permanently taken out of operation and therefore cannot emit any more pollutants. Scrapped vehicles or equipment are replaced with clean zero emission technology, either a battery electric or hydrogen fuel cell through either of our two programs. Next, let's transition to discussing scrappage within the New York Truck Voucher Incentive Program, or TVIP. I'll turn it over to Natalie now.
Thanks, Sydney. So just a little bit of background. Here's just some information on the New York Truck Voucher Incentive Program. Of course, it's administered by NYSERDA, and we work a lot with DEC here, so the Department of Environmental Conservation, and they help out as well in our scrappage rules to ensure that everything is done correctly. So as Paul and Devin mentioned before, they work at the Voucher Help Center at the Center for Sustainable Energy. So here's the information for that. And then next slide, please. All right, just a brief background about the New York Truck Voucher Incentive Program. So the program funds 100% zero emission, medium and heavy duty trucks, buses, and non-road equipment. So that's anything from class 3 through 8. And then non-road equipment ranges anywhere from forklifts, you could get cargo handling equipment, very broad range of non-road equipment we offer in the program. The whole entire point of the program is to reduce the upfront purchase cost for the purchaser that's purchasing the equipment or the vehicles. So this helps accelerate or eliminate the payback period. So the dealer actually is responsible for the application in this program. So they come in, they apply on behalf of their purchaser. The PO price is reduced by the voucher amount, and then the dealer is reimbursed at the end of this process. As I just mentioned, it engages multiple parties, including the manufacturer for the manufacturer eligibility application to get models on our eligibility list. And the funding for this program is available to public, nonprofit, and private fleets located all across New York State. So we do not discriminate. Wherever you are, we will be able to fund you. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned before, we offer vehicles and also equipment. We do have a little bit of money left for transit buses, but this is just a little bit of an overview of where scrappage is required and where scrappage is optional, because this has changed now in the new iteration of the truck voucher program. I don't know if any folks on here, I saw some familiar names in the participants of this webinar. So I bet some folks know that before we had VW money for class 4 through 8 vehicles. So now in the new program that we released in June, we now are offering 3 through 8 for zero emission vehicles, and also scrappage is optional because of our funding source. We're funded through the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative investment plan for $35 million. And then going on to non-road equipment. So this is also funded through the Volkswagen mitigation settlement. We are actually able to utilize the EPA DERA option, which is great. So that takes away the 2009 scrappage requirement. And that also removes all the other like vocational hour requirements. So it's really easy. Just if you have a functional piece of equipment in your fleet that is still operational, you will be able to scrap it to purchase a new all electric piece of non-road equipment. And then lastly, I'll just touch on this very quick. We do have transit buses still available through the Volkswagen option. So that is still the exact same program rules as the previous program. So scrappage of a 1992 or 2009 older diesel bus. And it's actually their diesel engine that has to be 1992 to 2009. So we only have 1 million left or so of this transit money. And right now it's only restricted to 5 transit agencies in New York. So we don't touch on that too much because it's a small pool of funds. Next slide, please. All right, just gonna stay on the slide for a minute so people can first of all see our incentives in the program, and then second of all, see that we have a scrap bonus for fleets in the program. So as you can see, it ranges from class 3 about $10,000 to a class 8 fuel cell we offer $40,000, and for just a regular class 8 we also offer $40,000 as well. So big range for a scrap bonus. So folks come in and take this opportunity. Next slide, please. All right. Now getting into the specifics of each funding track scrappage requirements. So as I mentioned before, the class 3 through 8 zero emission vehicles is optional. But if you were to choose to scrap a vehicle and receive that bonus, here are some of the qualifications that must be adhered to make your scrap vehicle eligible. So it has to be vehicle model year 2015 or older. It has to be operational. So that means it does still have to be registered. You know, you could still drive it around, you wouldn't get pulled over. It has to be an equal weight class or one larger than the new electric vehicle purchased. So we really want to make sure the emission benefits are just as great, if not greater. So we would not allow you, example, to scrap a class 4 to purchase a class 5. We would allow you to scrap a class 5 to purchase a class 4. So it can only go one way. So it has to be one weight class larger or the same weight class. As I said before, they have to be registered at the time of scrappage for at least one of the previous 2 years. So technically you could have a year before where it is not registered, but it does still have to be drivable and at least operable. So you could still turn the vehicle on and it can still turn on. And they have to have a diesel or gasoline engine. So pretty straightforward. For non-road equipment, it is a requirement to scrap an older piece of equipment. So for this, as I said, because we're utilizing the EPA DERA option, the scrappage requirements are a lot more lax. So there's no specific model year or engine tier required for this, but it has to be a similar function and vocation. So for example, you could not scrap an excavator to buy a piece of cargo handling equipment. Now, if there's a piece of cargo handling equipment that you would like to scrap that is that same vocation or performs a similar function, we would be able to consider that. You know, you could scrap a larger forklift to purchase a smaller forklift. That's totally fine. It's the same vocation. And then I'll just touch on this very, very briefly. Transit buses, you're required to scrap. They have to be engine model year 1992 to 2009. They have to be an active part of your fleet for at least 24 of the previous 27 months. I did not mention that on here, but that's all right. It can't be part of your contingency fleet. Vehicles with alternate fuel powertrains are eligible on a case-by-case basis. We have allowed some hybrids to be scrapped for this. But yes, so that is all for transit. And next slide, please. Another thing that we have changed based on feedback from fleets in the program before is that a lot of times our scrappage timeline did not adhere to how long it took for the fleet to make the new vehicle operational in their fleet full time. So one of the unfortunate Volkswagen settlement rules in the previous iteration of the program, and also listed as the transit bus requirement here, is you only had 3 weeks after your vehicle was delivered to scrap. So that created a lot of issues for fleets for multiple reasons. As I just previously stated, it didn't give folks enough time to have that transition from, you know, a gasoline or diesel vehicle to a all electric. It then a lot of times people use their vehicles all the way up until they get their new vehicle delivered. So that really did only give 3 weeks. You know, most people weren't scrapping before. They were using their vehicle right up until their new vehicle was delivered. And it only really gave them 3 weeks to coordinate with our scrappage auditors, you know, find a eligible dismantler, and then also then have that scrap event and scrap it. It was just a lot. On top of that, company also then, you know, having one or more trucks that are new on the lot. Also, another big part of this is charging infrastructure. You know, we understand utilities are very busy with planning, you know, site visits, site inspections, going out to then actually install, you know, whatever electrical upgrades are needed. We know that takes time. So because we have flexibility in our regional greenhouse gas initiative funding, we were able to extend this scrappage timeline out to a year. So now we are giving folks a very lucrative timeline for just class 3 through 8 zero emission vehicles if they choose to scrap on their application. So because of this, we actually will be paying purchasers the scrap bonus directly. If you would like more information on this, feel free to reach out to the Voucher Help Center. They can provide you more information on this process, but it's very simple. You just fill out your company information, you send us in your W-9, and then we're able to pay you. So it would just be a direct voucher. This is because we did not want to hold up the dealer reimbursement process. We recognize that dealers carry a lot of the cost burden in this process. So first of all, thank you. And second of all, we really try to adhere this program rule to make sure that you're still getting out your base bonus price, and then any other bonuses will get paid out to the dealer in that timely manner. And then whenever the vehicle fleet is ready to scrap, then they scrap and they get that voucher bonus directly. Going down to non-road equipment, you then, if you are scrapping non-road equipment as a equipment purchaser, you have a month for your equipment, and that is pertinent to EPA DEER rules that you have a month. So one more week than transit. We tried, but unfortunately, this is a DEER rule that we have to follow. And then, as I said, the 21 days for transit buses. So we're really excited to offer this 330 mission vehicle extension for folks to really get a feel for the vehicles and make sure they have enough time to scrap. So next slide, please. Now getting into the exact scrappage event procedure and how it goes. So the scrap vehicle or piece of equipment must be in drivable condition. Equipment does not have to be drivable if it can't drive, but that's okay. At least it has to be operational. So at least has to be able to turn it on, and it turns on. The chassis and engine have to be intact at the time of scrappage. So you couldn't, bring the vehicle or equipment on a flatbed with the engine outside. The engine has to be taken out of the equipment or vehicle by the vehicle dismantler. So as you can see on the third bullet, it must be performed by a participating vehicle dismantler. So it's the vehicle and or equipment dismantler. We have a list of about 15 entities across New York State that will scrap your vehicle for you. They are participants of the program, so they understand the program rules, what pictures that have to be taken. So speaking of pictures that have to be taken, there's a lot of documentation that is required. So there's before pictures that you as the fleet can take of the vehicle that's being scrapped. And there's also after photos, which we'll get into those details in a little bit. But also there are two specific documents that we will also get into a little bit that is required. So for vehicles, there's a scrappage certification, and for equipment, there's a scrappage plan. So we'll get into those a little bit later about what specifically is on those. But more just on the exact process of when you're at that scrap event. The scrapped vehicle or equipment, it must be rendered inoperable by cutting a 3-inch hole in the engine block. So that will be either we have stickers that we provide of 3 inches with our logo on them, or you can just use a ruler, totally fine. And then also disabling the chassis. So that's completely cutting the frame rails in half. If the equipment does not have frame rails, that's okay. We'll get into that scrappage plan in a little bit to explain how you would do that. But this is the general process. So unless there's something blaringly different about your piece of vehicle, your piece of equipment, or your vehicle, almost 100% vehicles can be scrapped this way. And I know because I've seen almost every class of vehicle, every vehicle type scrapped this way. So unless there's something terribly wrong or different with the vehicle, this is really how it needs to be scrapped. Also, the last bullet I want to touch on, which is really important. I mentioned before that we work with the Department of Environmental Conservation. They're very concerned with how the fluids are released from the vehicles and equipment. So it's really important that everything must be decommissioned before the scrap event. So that can definitely be done at the scrapyard. It should be done at the scrapyard. They have the proper disposal techniques to dispose of your fluids, your refrigerants, your batteries need to be disposed of properly. So making sure they take those batteries out before the rest of the vehicle is scrapped. And those are disposed of to make sure all those hazards in the batteries are taken care of properly. So just really making sure the vehicle, when the scrap event happens, is ready to go. And we'll get into more of that too later in the webinar. So next slide, please. All right, and then I will pass it over to my coworker, Jay, to talk about the New York School Bus Incentive Program.
Thanks, Natalie. As previously mentioned, my name is Jay Craig, and I'm the project manager that runs the New York State Bus Incentive Program, or NYSBIP. This program is administered by NYSERDA and is backed by the 2022 Environmental Bond Act. On this slide, you can find some of our major program contacts, which you'll see is the VHC. We provided a number as well as an email. VHC is our Voucher Help Center, or as Devin and Paul mentioned, are a part of that team who should be answering questions in our chat right now. The VHC helps with navigating your application throughout the application process. They give you details and updates and outline anything that's needed from you on your end. You can also see my email listed there as well as Sophie Patka, who is the project manager that runs our charging program, which is closely related to our bus program. So I thought I'd include that since electric school buses do need a charging infrastructure. Next slide, please. Here on this slide, we wanted to outline our goals and intent of the program. So NYSBIP is a incentive program that's aimed to accelerate the deployment of zero emission school buses in the medium as well as the heavy duty vehicle weight classes. Now, this incentive program helps facilitate fleet adoption of electric school buses. It reduces the upfront costs of those buses, and currently, it reduces the upfront cost, which is currently more than what's comparable on ICE vehicles. These vouchers make it a little bit more affordable for fleets to gain experience with the cleaner technologies to offset those costs. Not to mention the environmental as well as environmental and health benefits for not only the riders, but for New York State residents as well. Next slide, please. Similar to Natalie's slide, we wanted to show the vehicles that not only are eligible to be purchased under our program, which you can see above that picture of the bus. There's a link that has a list, which is also listed on our website, that shows all of the eligible vehicles that can be purchased under our program and get an incentive benefit. Now, it is optional to do the scrappage portion in this program, but in order to get the incentive, you do have to scrap. Now, it's only something applicable for new Type A, new Type C, and new Type D vehicles, as repowered Type A's and D's are just the same vehicle on a rebuilt over its chassis. So it doesn't apply in that setting. Next slide for me, please. We also wanted to show the scrappage bonus amount that is given. So it ranges from $47,500 for the new Type A to about $65,000 just for the scrappage bonus for the new Type D. As I mentioned again, the repowered, there isn't a scrappage bonus that's applied there. So I'll leave that up for a moment just so you can view. These are other additional add-on incentives that you can qualify for with your bus, your electric school bus under our program. Okay, next slide for me, please. Okay, so as far as scrappage requirements for the bus program, similar to truck, you do have to destroy the engine as well as the chassis in a similar fashion. There'll be a 3-inch hole that's drilled into the engine block, and the chassis rails need to be sheared or cut in half. As far as vehicles that apply, that qualify for being scrapped in the bus program, it has to either be owned by the school district or the third-party purchaser who is supplying transit for the school district. That scrapped vehicle must have been driven 2,500 miles in the previous 12 years. If it has, then the buses that we're looking for has to either be 7 years or older upon time of application. Now, if your bus doesn't drive that many miles in the past 12 months, then we do have an exception road for you, which you can use then diesel buses that are 10 years or older from application time and have 110,000 miles on the dash. So we tried to make a way for multiple types of vehicles to still qualify in this scrappage portion of our program, but the bus that is being scrapped needs to be the same type or one type lower than the electric school bus that you're purchasing. So similar to the truck program as well. Next slide for me, please. And I'll pass this top portion off to Natalie, and I will cover the bottom half here.
Thanks, Jay. So as I mentioned before, we'll get into the pictures. So now Jay and I will tag team this slide to talk about the difference in pictures for our programs. As you can see, they're almost exactly the same, if not very similar. So really, as long as you make sure you're taking all of these pictures, you will be completely fine. We will be able to approve your scrappage vehicle. So for truck vouchers specifically, we do ask for the side of the vehicle, so the entire vehicle. So that doesn't mean just like a little, side piece of the cab. I want to see the whole side of the vehicle. Give me everything. I want to see the VIN plate. I need to see the VIN plate. I need to match the VIN with the VIN that you put in the application to make sure that it's the same vehicle. I would like to see the entire vehicle engine. And I say I like in this, but it's really I need to see that. So I need to see the entire vehicle engine. So that's also too, not just a little picture, not just a little picture of the whole. I need to see the entire engine. I would like to see the engine tag. So that's the engine serial number, engine family, and engine model year on it. So for us, that helps verify that that engine is also with that vehicle, and then we match up the vehicle to the application. So those are our before photos that we require. And then our after photos are really the same. So we have the 3-inch hole in the engine block. So I asked for a picture of the before engine wide out. As long as we have the whole of after the scrappage event happens, that's totally fine. Barry will also go through a little bit more of how people are doing a little bit different scrappage procedures now with engines, which is totally fine. But so it's a 3-inch hole. It's okay if it's bigger, totally fine. So we need to though see a ruler or a sticker. So we need to see that it is at least 3 inches to meet our requirement. We need a close-up picture of the chassis. So as I said, the side of the vehicle before was showing the entire vehicle intact. And then after it's scrapped, we need a close-up picture of the cut chassis. So you should be able to see the frame rails almost completely cut in half. So either they're bent or they're completely apart, which you'll see also later in the pictures that we have. And then I need the full side photo. So as I said before, I need a full side photo before and after. I want to make sure that the full entire vehicle has been scrapped. I need to see a little bit of the scrapyard around it. So those are the pictures for truck voucher that are required in the program if you are to scrap a vehicle. Now, always more than willing to sift through pictures. So please take more if you need more. But I will pass it over to Jay to then explain for NYSBIP what the photo requirements are.
Yeah, can't echo enough of what Natalie stated. The more the pictures, the better. It can't hurt. If there's ever a time where there's something that's grainy or we couldn't see, those additional photos will definitely help. So again, with those before photos, we do need a picture of the VIN plate. We do need it close enough so that we can see the VIN, the weight of the vehicle, as well as the manufacturing date. And we do need a picture of the front of the bus, which includes the license plate before it's destroyed, as well as the fleet number of your bus, which will be included on the front and side of the vehicle. As far as after photos, we need a picture of that same engine block with that 3-inch hole, and then a full-size photo from the side showing the bus has been sliced in half. Our VHC will provide you with what is called a scrappage attestation form at this time that your scrapyard and your district will need to sign. It will ask for the VIN number of the vehicle. It'll ask for the license plate, the type of vehicle, gross weight, things of that nature, and it needs a signature as well. So just make sure that that information on that form will match all of the information that's on the VIN plate and the photos that you take and submit. Next photo, and I'll pass it over, I believe, to Jonah.
Thanks, Dre. Thanks, Natalie. I'll go over just a couple of examples of the NYSBIP scrappage event photos before handing off to Barry for doing the same on the TVIP side. But you can see here some good examples of what the photos should look like for if you're scrapping a school bus. On the before side, we have a good clear picture of the VIN plate. Maybe it's a little hard on the webinar to read all the info there, but when submitting that picture, it has the gross vehicle weight, the VIN, all the good information you need, and just taking a picture that's clear and legible. And then same thing, just a clear picture of the front of the bus. I'll come back to this later, but this is a good example of being a little flexible. You can see that the bus does not have a front license plate, which it is supposed to have. Sometimes that just happens. You want the license plate, but at some point, if we get there and it's not there, you can't control that. But with that aside, just a good example of those two beginning pictures. And then on the after side, these are the two photos here that are required. So again, it's that picture of the engine with the 3-inch hole, and we're talking a bit about the different ways to destroy the engine. That's done with a torch there, but you can see the sticker clearly showing that it's big enough. And then aside there, a great picture of fully destroyed bus. The body was taken completely off the chassis, and the chassis is clearly cut in half. Not all of the time will the body be taken completely off the chassis like that. This was a smaller school bus, so that was easier, but that's all right as well. This is just a very clear example of what should be done to destroy the chassis. So those are the bus pictures. We'll get into it, but more photos in this are always welcome, and we'll touch on that. But these are just some pretty good examples of what these pictures should look like. And I will pass it off to Barry for the TVIP pictures.
Thank you. These are all examples of how you get a lot of the information. So you'll see there on the sign that says MAC. Well, that's a vehicle ID number. That's the gross vehicle weight. Sometimes it even has the engine serial number on it. These are all really, really important things to do. The other things I want to tell you, I've highlighted a number of things. First, don't forget your sticker, right? And that's something that both the scrap yards will have, they should have, and it's also something that NYSERDA's rep should have. And if any of you are dealers or fleets yourself and you would like to have some, let us know. We can send you some. We have lots of them. The other thing is we've changed things recently. A number of the scrap yards that originally were cutting holes in the engines, and I think we have a picture of this going to the next slide. In fact, go ahead and go to the next slide, please, Jenny. Might show here. Yeah, there on the left is a 3-inch hole that was burned in the side of the engine utilizing a torch. Typically now the scrap yards are using a shear. So a shear is a hydraulic scissor that's mounted on an excavator, and it's what's used to both break the frame and they can utilize it to crack the engine. So basically they're cracking that engine in two. What's important if you're taking the pictures is that you take a close-up picture showing with your 3-inch sticker showing to show that it is a 3-inch or more hole, and take a further away picture so you could recognize it as an engine because it's truly destroyed. And I think, as you mentioned, Natalie, it's good to have a far away picture because it also relates the engine and matches it to the vehicle. So if you can see some color of the school bus or color of the truck, that just kind of reinforces that it is indeed the engine that was in that vehicle and it is indeed destroyed. That's super important. I don't think it got mentioned earlier, but the reasoning behind this scrappage is that NYSERDA, the state of New York, and the whole country, we really don't want to see these vehicles being shipped to another state or another part of the world where they can emit diesel particulate matter or anything else. We want them gone. That's the reason to go through the scrappage process, and that's why the fleets are rewarded additional funds if you're scrapping. Next. Here's some more pictures. This makes scrappage look like a lot of fun. Today would not be a good day for scrappage. It wouldn't be fun at all. So recognize that. But the other things that are super important, be flexible. Jonah showed you a picture of a vehicle that showed up without a front license plate. I've had that happen a lot. What we need to do as scrappage advisors is then do a little more research and perhaps get the fleet manager or the school district to come up with the actual registration so we can prove that it's an actively registered vehicle. Another important part of the preparation process would be to get an accurate reading of the odometer. Quite often, when you get there and the vehicle has been pre-prepared for scrappage, it has had the batteries removed, it has had all the fluids removed. You go to try to find out what the odometer reading is, and because the odometer is electronic, you can't figure that out. So you have to go back to the district and find out what the odometer reading was. Typically, fleet managers update that on a monthly basis. The other thing I like to do is to reach out and involve a lot of different people in the process. So I like to have a representative of the vehicle manufacturer. So if it's a Bluebird bus, I want to have the local Bluebird dealer there. If it's a Mack truck or a Volvo truck, I want to have the local Volvo dealer there. I like having the fleet manager who's going to benefit someone from the organization that has applied for the scrappage funding to be there. And then finally, I like to take advantage of the leadership of New York State in this and invite more people to collaborate. So this picture you see is actually, I believe it was the Shenango Bridge School District. They brought out some junior high students as a field trip. And I'll tell you, these kids had a lot of fun. They learned a lot about scrappage. They learned how to be careful and to be safe. You can see that scrappage dealer required us all to wear safety glasses and hard hats. And also, they even were allowed to interview the owner of the scrapyard, which I think benefited all of them. All of us in the clean transportation world, we're always looking for some free advertising. So collaborate, work together, and we can be successful with this. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Barry. I'll go over now just a couple of tips and sort of a timeline for preparing for a scrappage event, what to do at the scrappage event, best practices. So to start with preparation, this top point falls into the be proactive, but that would be, one of the huge things is just, be proactive, know that the scrap event is happening and that you need to do a scrap event for the voucher far ahead of time. We love 1 to 2 months ahead of time of the desired scrappage date to, get the ball rolling on reaching out to the dismantler, reaching out to NYSERDA and scrap auditors if needed. And that really just gives everyone enough time to get it scheduled on a day that works for everyone. Make sure sort of all our ducks in a row, everything is good to go. That is just, simply just the time is really the key thing there. You want to keep those sort of scrappage and voucher redemption timelines in mind. Make sure events, needed events don't pile up and you're not waiting until buses absolutely need to be off the lot to scrap them. That just helps, everyone helps, helps you as well. In that vein of, being proactive, kind of doing things ahead of time, even on the day and the day before the scrap event, it extends to there as well. We really recommend bringing the vehicles to the scrapyard if possible a day or two before. The big reason there is, to make sure that there's no last minute issues, nothing happens on the day of the scrappage that the buses for some reason can't get there or are late. It just avoids that. But B, it really helps to drain all of the fluids and make sure the batteries have been removed ahead of time. Been to scrap events where that gets done at the time of the scrap, and it adds half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, depending on the bus. So, if that can be done a day before and then have that all prepped and ready to go for the day of the scrappage, saves everyone a lot of time. So that's why we recommend that. It's all, really important to coordinate well with everyone involved in the scrap event, the purchase of the dealer, scrap auditors. That's really key, just to make sure that there's no miscommunications. Everyone knows when the scrap event is happening, where it's happening, what's needed, all the information that needs to be submitted. The I do want to highlight exactly when a scrap auditor is needed, and that's really when, if there is a new scrapyard, a vehicle dismantling facility for either of the programs, is one way, or the second time it's needed is if the purchaser is new. So the fleet or the third party operator for the bus program is new to the program, then a scrap auditor is required. A scrap auditor is always available, though, if requested. So you don't, unless you are either using a new scrapyard or are representing a new purchaser or are a new purchaser, you don't need an auditor, and oftentimes that can make scheduling go a little easier, get a little more flexibility and not have to, rely on me or Barry having a free couple of hours to go to a scrapyard can make things simpler. But that being said, if you ever, anytime, want an auditor for whatever reason, that will always be available. And then we can go to the next slide. So just continuing on this, preparation for the scrap event. Be prepared is probably an obvious point when we're talking about preparation, but you really just again on this theme of making sure everything's set and good to go far ahead of time. You want to make sure you have all of the vehicle documentation that you need. So you have all the deeds and information copied down from the bus, and the VIN number and all of that good to go. For TVIP, that's also scrappage photos, and the scrappage documents are the certification for the Class 3 through 8 vehicles, the voucher redemption document there. If you have non-road equipment, that's the scrappage plan with the application, the submission document. And for the bus program, that's just scrappage photos, the 2 DOT inspection records, the registration, and the attestation form. So just knowing which, and this can be, I would say, on the NYSERDA side, if you want to coordinate with them, just knowing what information is required, what documents you need, having, again, all of that sort of squared away ahead of time will make the actual scrap event go much more smoothly. I would say it's best to avoid being at the scrap event and then trying to scramble to figure out, what you need to submit from there. But the less important point for preparing for the scrap event, and I probably said this already a couple different ways, is to just be communicative. Make sure you're coordinating with the scrapyard and the auditor in the lead up to the scrap event, just to ensure that all the logistical details are hammered out. These simple things like the date, the time, if the vehicle drop-off time and date is different than the scrap time and date, which again we recommend having that done before. But if those are different, making sure that's all clear. Making sure you have everyone knows the number of vehicles being scrapped, if it's one truck or bus or multiple, and the details of those, and that's really important. And then just communicating with the voucher programs staff and the auditor if anything changes, any of the details of the event change, or anything's unclear. But I would say, there's usually always going to be something to check on, or a question someone has during the event or beforehand. So just keeping open lines of communication is always the best way to go about that. Moving to the next slide. Great. So we just covered sort of all these tips for before the scrap event takes place, but during the actual scrap event, some best practices then is, like we said, make sure the vehicle is scrapped or delivered to the scrapyard on time, preferably a day before. Something really important here, given that we do recommend trying to get them to the scrapyard for drainage the day before is you want to really clearly communicate, and as a scrap auditor, I'll do this as well. Just really clearly communicate that while that drainage should be done, there should be no actual scrapping of the vehicles until the date and time when the scrap event is actually scheduled and you have auditors there if you need them. That is, that's the big fear with delivering them ahead of time, is that the scrapyard might just have a miscommunication and scrap them when they get them. So you really want to avoid that, because again, if they're scrapped incorrectly or not following the correct procedure, or if an auditor is needed and they're scrapped before an auditor gets there, that would not be great. So if you do deliver the vehicles ahead of time, you just want to make sure, again, that the scrapyard knows not to scrap them until the actual scrappage date and time. At the event itself, we went over the types of pictures that are needed. That being said, it's always good to take more pictures than you need. There is never a penalty for taking more pictures. You can never have too many. And this is especially true if the process that the scrapyard is using is a little different than is laid out, or just it's kind of hard to get the right angles or exact picture you need. Just taking as many pictures as possible is always a safe bet. Just if you need more evidence to show that the scrap was in fact done correctly. If you can have multiple people take photos, that's always good, just again for redundancy. But just the more photos, the better is the main takeaway there. And a big point that I want to stress, which we've touched on, is being flexible. We show you that picture of the bus without the license plate, or sometimes a scrappage needs to be done in a certain way, just based on scrapyard constraints to the sort of capacity they have. If they need to take the engine out of the vehicle, or they can't take it out of the vehicle. Those kind of things can't really be avoided if they're happening at the scrap event. So you just want to make sure that you kind of have to go with the flow there and take just as many pictures as you can to document exactly what's happening. Make sure you communicate those details to the program staff. There's a boundary here of they obviously need to actually follow, get the scrappage done within some letter of the law. But for these sort of smaller things, I would just recommend not freaking out too much if something seems slightly different than you were anticipating, and just being communicative, and again getting those pictures taken so you can show exactly what was done and the fact that the scrappage was indeed done, even if it's not exactly going as you thought it would. And then just one tip for me is to wear good appropriate clothing and shoes. Varies a bit by scrapyard, but you probably will get a little dirty. Your shoes will certainly get dirty. I would not recommend wearing dress shoes or anything fancy like that. But that's just a tip. Bring water, bring a snack as well. Those are always good. And we have one more slide here, or was this the last one for me? That was the last one for me. Great. So now it's Q&A time. I'll hand it back off to Sydney.
Thanks, Jonah, and thank you everyone to listening to the presentation. Thank you to our panelists, really wonderful content here. So our panelists have been answering questions in our Q&A throughout the presentation. So I'll begin reading through some of these just to share them with the audience. And then anyone else who has questions, you can go ahead and put them in now. And you'll either get a type response, or if you have like a specific question, we can let you come off mute and ask the panelists directly. So starting with our first question about where do school buses fall into the scrappage process, transit or class 3 through 8 vehicles? So I believe this is referring to TVIP. So the answer to that is that school buses will be directed to go through the New York School Bus Incentive Program. They're no longer eligible for TVIP. Another question, in a lease scenario, can the leasing company provide the scrap vehicle or does it need to be the operator? Additionally, if the operator is in a DAC and a small fleet, do they qualify for the additional funds? The answer here is that where vehicles are leased for at least 3 years, they will operate under the requirements as the vehicle purchaser and will need to provide their own scrappage vehicle. They may purchase or acquire a vehicle to scrap. In that case, the operator will be the entity that needs to meet the DAC and small fleet bonuses and all other bonuses stackable up to the total eligible cost of the vehicle. Another question, will the change to the engine scrappage be reflected in the NYSBIP manual? All updates from this webinar will be reflected in the next step update to implementation manuals. Another school bus question. And NYSBIP requires a photo of the front of the vehicle with license plate at time of application. The rules say that the vehicle must be in service at time of application, but at time of scrappage, there's not going to be a license plate because they've taken it out of service and turned in the license plate. So the answer to this question, I think this is a really good one. So at the time of scrappage, we will use the bus number as a unique identifier. So removal of the license plate at the time of scrappage is acceptable. The license plate must be on the vehicle present at the time of application because the vehicle cannot be out of service prior to the application approval and voucher reservation. Another question, if we make purchase of zero emission buses, can we scrap the bus earlier than delivery? Is there a limit on how early, if so? The answer to this question is yes. As long as your application is approved, you can scrap your vehicle anytime after. Any other?
Sydney,
Yes,
yeah, Sydney, I'll add one thing to one
Of
of the
course.
questions that came in. Someone asked about could they remove the seats from the bus and other things prior to delivering it? And in practicality, if you need a seat, I suppose you could. I have also seen, but remember the vehicle has to be operable to be a part of this. I have seen after the scrappage process, wheels and tires removed. If they're in good shape, I would assume, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that it would be okay for a fleet or the district to take that back once the vehicle is scrapped.
Yes, as long as the vehicle is still in operational condition. Wheels and tires. I would say tires, you can maybe take them back after, but we would like you to be able to drive the vehicle to the scrapyard. So, I would say maybe like if they remove the tires at the scrapyard and you want to take them back, that's fine. But I would say probably seats and windows, sure, if you want to drive it without seats or windows, that's all right. But just also want to recognize that it should be in drivable condition. So would still probably need the wheels and tires.
Right, Natalie. The example I've seen is they were taken off at the scrapyard after the
Gotcha. Yep. So that would make sense. And Jeremiah, it seems like that'd be something you would just, I would maybe communicate with the scrapyard early to make sure that they understand you're going to be taking these parts back. So there's no discrepancy at the scrapyard because just to be frank, these scrapyards usually take everything from the vehicles, and either dispose of it or, reused parts. So just communicate with them that they will not be getting those in their possession, I think would be also wise. Yeah, I could take Sawyer your question in the chat. So class 3 and 4 portion of TVIP is now fully subscribed. Customers with vouchers pending approval are losing confidence that the funding is available and are frustrated. So couple things with this, Sawyer. Apologies that your customers are losing confidence. They should not be. So a few things with this. First of all, we did put out a statement with the dates of the wait list. So if you submitted an application for your customers before October 3rd, you will, unless your application is like completely wrong, it's under the assumption that you will receive funding. Anything after October 3rd through October 20th, that is what is in question. So those will be evaluated in date order. So we will start with October 3rd and go through. So that's just some notes on that. We put that communication out. I'm more than willing. I will actually just copy and paste it as well live. I also want to add to this answer about the volume of applications we received. So you will see that some of the review timelines, especially on the NYSERDA side, as I am the project manager that approves all the applications, might be a little bit slower than usual. We received an exorbitant amount of applications in a very short time frame, which is not like this program. It's not typical for this program, as there's a lot of different intricacies in each application, multiple documents, etc. It's not really cut and dry. We review every single document. We review every customer, so it's a lot of time for reviewing the applications. So I just also want to preface that it might be a longer time frame, but that does not mean if they submitted before October 3rd that they won't be eligible. They should be eligible for those funds. So hopefully, Sawyer, that soothes your customers. If you have anyone concerned, always feel free to have them reach out to me, have them reach out to the Voucher Help Center, the NYTVIP at energycenter.org email, and they will be able to communicate status and let the customers know where the application is at, so you can see where it is in the process.
Thanks, Natalie. We got another question in. Are we able to request someone from NYSERDA to be at our scrappage events? We have been scrapping in increments of 5 buses at a time. The answer to this one, whenever there is a scrappage event, please reach out to the Voucher Help Center and they will coordinate with a scrappage auditor to attend the event. So always happy to have and encourage the scrappage auditors to attend. And the Voucher Help Center will help you with that. Another question on the school bus side. If we have to drive the bus to the scrapyard would have to drain the fluids and remove the batteries. Are districts supposed to cover the cost? What if the scrapyard isn't an approved vendor for those services? So I can turn this over to the school bus team to answer this question.
Yeah, I can take that one. As far as the cost, it's the purpose of our incentive that it'll be covered, that will help cover any of the costs that you incur in getting the vehicle there in order to be scrapped. As far as the fluids, similar to the truck voucher program, they should then be, the fluids should be drained out prior to the scrappage.
And I will jump in about the scrapyard not being an approved vendor, Lisa. So there's a few ways we can do this. One is you could try to communicate with a already existing vehicle dismantler, but there is an agreement with NYSERDA that all these dismantlers sign when they become on our eligible dismantler list. So if your scrapyard is interested in scrapping your vehicles for the school bus application, and they would like to become on our list, even if they would not like to become on our list and they maybe just want to do your event, we still do need a signed dismantler agreement with them. So I would say please have them get in touch with the Voucher Help Center, the NYSBIP at energycenter.org email, and have a vehicle dismantler, either phone number or email, and we'll be able to coordinate with them to just get the dismantler agreement signed so that they understand all the program rules. Also, Lisa, I just actually want to touch on the first part as well. So we have had cases where the scrapyard has mentioned a cost, but please feel free to let us know if that's the case, because you should not be covering any of those costs at all. That is completely on the scrapyard.
All right. Thank you for all these great questions. We are going to wrap up now, since we are at time. If you have any additional questions, both voucher help centers are available and open to answer anything that you might think of during or after the webinar. So here we have posted the TVIP and NYSBIP websites, and we have the voucher help centers for both as well. So please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you everyone for attending. It was really great to have you all here today answering some great questions and doing a deep dive into the scrappage process to really learn some in-depth lessons for you all. So thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.